Today we will begin a project that combines some math skills that you've been learning with our science topic of astronomy. We have been using ordered pairs to describe the location of points on the coordinate plane. Today you will use this skill to create a constellation. For this activity, you will need a pencil, a ruler, a coordinate grid handout, and a picture of your constellation. Each of you will receive a different constellation that we see in the night sky. My constellation is called Corona Borealis, or Northern Crown. You will start by writing the name of your constellation at the top. So as you can see on my grid, I've written my title, my constellation, and made sure to capitalize since that is a proper name. Next, you are going to carefully examine your constellation. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit here so we can look at it more closely. So looking at my constellation, I see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stars that make up my constellation. So I know that I will need to include 7 points on my grid. I'm also noticing that the crown is a little bit tilted. It doesn't look the way it would if it was on someone's head. That would look more like this. The reason that it's tilted is because this is the way that we see it when we look at it in the night sky. It's a little bit off center and a little bit tilted. So when I create my constellation on my grid, it needs to look exactly the same as it does here. Something else you may notice is that the constellation in your picture is larger than what you can fit into your grid. So we will not be using exact measurements to create our constellation, but instead you will need to look at the location of each point relative to other points in the constellation. Notice that some points are closer together, while others are farther apart. It will probably take you several tries to get all the points in the right locations, which is just fine. You can erase and move points around until it looks like your constellation. You also have 2 grids to practice on before making your final project. So as I look at my picture and my grid, and put them side by side, I want to kind of gauge how much space my constellation will take up both vertically, up and down, and horizontally from side to side. I notice that there's not too much distance between the highest and lowest point, but it is kind of wide horizontally. So I'm going to start with the lowest point that is closer to the center, and then I'm going to just build out from there. For your constellation, you may want to start at one end and work towards the other. If it's a very long constellation, you might want to start by doing both endpoints. So for example, if yours was going to take up a lot of space, you might put one end, by making your point for one end, and then making your point for the other end, so that you know how much room you have to fill in all the other points. So I will put my first point on 13 on the x-axis, since that's about in the center. And I think I will put it at 6 on the y-axis. My constellation is, since it's not too long vertically, I have room to leave a little space at the bottom. So that's why I didn't put this all the way down here. Now if yours is much longer than mine, then you're going to want to start down closer to 1 on the x-axis. I'm sorry, on the y-axis. If yours is very wide, then you're going to want to start closer to 1 on the x-axis. It really just depends on your picture and how many points it has and just what you need to do. So if you need help figuring out where to start, I will be around. You can always ask for help. Now, since I started in the middle of my constellation, I'm going to work one side at a time. So I'm just going to start with the right side here, which only has 2 more points. So looking at the next point to the right, I see that it doesn't rise much higher on the y-axis, probably only about 2 units higher. On the x-axis, there's a greater difference, maybe 4 or 6 units. So I think I'm going to go up about 2 units and over 6 units. Let's see if that was right. Up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I'm going to connect my 2 points using my ruler. Try to put your ruler in the center of your dots. And make sure to make your dots pretty big. We want to be able to see them easily. Now looking, I just went from here and I added this point. So now I'm going to add this next point on the right. So I see that this one rises up a lot higher on the y-axis, but it doesn't go over very much farther on the x-axis, maybe only 1.1 unit over. But maybe it goes up about 4 or 5 units. So I'm going to go over 1 unit and up 5 units. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And again, I will connect my dots. So this is starting to look like my northern crown, or corona borealis. So now I'm going to move over to the stars on the left. So I'm going from here to here. And I notice that this distance is less than this distance here. And so since I went with, I believe, 6 units here, and then I'm going to go with maybe 3 units here. And it doesn't go up much higher on the y-axis, so probably only 2 units up. So I'm going to go up 2 and over 3. And connect those dots. Now looking at my next dot over, I see that this really makes a straight line between these 3. And this is about the same distance as well. So I'm going to do the same thing from here to here as I did from here to here. So I went up 2 and over 3. I'm going to do the same thing again. Up 2 and over 3. And then I will connect my dots. So far I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stars in my constellation. I need 2 more. So I just ended here and I need to go to this dot. By the way, whenever you go back to look at your constellation, you want to make sure that you're looking at it the right way, that it's not tilted. So because the name is on here, you should always be able to tell if it's straight. So make sure you have your picture of your constellation always going the same direction, always straight. Make sure that the words look straight so you know that you are going the right direction with your points as well. So from here to here, I see that it rises several units on the y-axis. It doesn't go very far on the x-axis, maybe only 1 point. So I think I'm going to go up 3 and over 1, and we'll see how that looks. Up 3, over 1. And then I will connect those points. And then my last point, this goes up quite a bit on the y-axis, maybe 4 or 5 units. And it goes over several too, maybe 2 or 3. So I'm going to start with going up 5 and over 3, and we'll see how that looks. So up 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, over 1, 2, 3. All right, and now I'm going to compare my picture and my grid. So it looks pretty similar. I am noticing some big differences though. I feel like this section right here is a lot longer than it is on the picture. So I feel like I need to bring this over back maybe to just 4 units away. So I'm going to go ahead and change this to here. And I'll redraw my line. Let's see how that looks. I need to also reconnect it to this point. So that still doesn't look quite right to me. This is kind of a sharper angle than it is here. And I feel like this keeps going the same direction when it's supposed to go. It kind of come back this way a little bit. So I think I'm going to move this down by 1 unit. Sorry, I had to adjust my pencil there. And again, this is a practice sheet, so it doesn't matter how many times you erase it, it's going to get marked up, and you can even turn it over and try it again on the other side if it gets too marked up. All right, let's take a look. I like this line better here, but now this one is way too long and it's going over way too much. So I think this needs to move down a little bit. And it needs to come back over here. So I think I'm actually going to put it right here. We'll see if that works better. I don't know. That looks, I think that looks pretty close. I might try doing it right here instead. Yep, I think I like that. That looks pretty close to my Corona Borealis, my picture right here. So now that I have it in the final way that I want it, now I need to write the ordered pairs. So I'm going to start at one end and go to the other end. So starting, I could start here or I could start here. I'm just going to start here. So my first ordered pair, I'm going to look at first, my first number of course is always the X. So it's on 9 for the X and 18 for the Y. So down here at the bottom, I'm going to write my ordered pair, 9, 18, with my parentheses. My next ordered pair for this point here is going to be 6, 13, my next ordered pair is 7, 10, next is 10, 8, next is 13, 6, (17, 7), and last but not least, 19, 12. Now yours may have more points than this, and it may have branches going different directions, so you can always do more lines down here. But once you have your constellation in its final form, and you have written all of your ordered pairs for each star on your grid, then you will turn both your grid and the picture back to your teacher. Remember, don't be afraid to erase or even start over. Have fun and do your best.